Ha ha ha. Eric Cooper, my good brother, I have to thank you. As soon as the phone was connected, Joshua's arrogant laughter rang out on the other side. What are you trying to say? Joshua. Eric frowned. Ha ha ha. Don't you understand? I read the newspaper, and I actually got in touch with Nicole Kidman, OMG. And even if I'm really with Nicole Kidman, what does it have to do with gratitude? Joshua said loudly. Of course there is, my dear brother. This proves that I am not the first person to fuck. The other day my dad and mom came to the team to see me. You don't know how hard it is. Now I'm the main player. I'm not a quarterback, but countless girls are at my disposal, and you don't know how uncomfortable I am. Then, if I am found out in the future, I can bring out your affairs, and if my mother does not punish you, there is certainly no reason to punish me, so I must thank you, my dear brother. Get out. Eric hung up the phone directly, that is, the current mobile phone does not have a recording function, otherwise the high and low will be recorded by this guy, and it will be taken back and played out with a loudspeaker. He and Nicole Kidman haven't been caught, so it's okay to die and not admit it. Joshua had just confessed to fucking on the phone, and Mom was sure to smash his ass and kick him out. In the co-pilot position, Chun Xing handed over the newspaper and then shook his head helplessly. A lot. Yes, boss, it's all headlines. Shit. Flipped through it casually, and sure enough, Oscar, who still occupied the entertainment headlines the day before yesterday, had been forced into a corner, and he and Nico were at the top of the list. But since the two of them barely took a photo together, the vast majority of newspapers chose those two classic moments, Oscar Eric heroically saving Beauty and Vanity Fair, where Nico leaned sideways to talk to Eric and almost kissed him. The two photos are very ambiguous, which inevitably makes the public believe in this scandal. But there's another thing that makes Eric feel funny, and that's the interview with Tom Cruise. He is also the focus of the paparazzi's siege now, his ex-husband's brother. Tom Cruise in the photo has some expressionless faces, some frowns, and some angry eyes, and his mood can be imagined. Although he fell in love with Penelope Cruz shortly after his divorce from Nicole Kidman. But my ex-wife, who has been together for 11 years, is still a better, younger, and more handsome man than herself, and I feel a little uncomfortable. Especially in the case that Penelope Cruz is clearly not as good as Nicole Kidman, which means that he has lost. The media also mercilessly picked up the scars, bluntly saying that Tom Cruise lost to Nicole Kidman, and the Australian girl who once needed his protection has surpassed him to become a towering tree. What's even funnier is that when Nicole Kidman was closed, the media interviewed Tom to congratulate him and thank Eric for his behavior. It's only been 2 days since I was slapped in the face, which is really a bit murderous. Throwing the newspaper aside, Eric couldn't help but laugh out loud. How do you say this feeling? Everyone hates Chow Thief, and everyone wants to be Chow Thief. Next to it, the phone screen suddenly lit up and a text message came. Neil Blomkamp, Director, we've all seen the report. You have to be careful. Subsequently, text messages from Ryan Reynolds, Patty Jenkins, Chris Evans, and others were also sent. Alas, thinking about Godot is also miserable. The whole crew is backstabbing her, and even Patty Jenkins, a woman, also chose to backstab her in order to get more investment. Sighing, Eric simply took the initiative to call over. The crew of Transformers was filming the scene of the Hoover Dam at this time. Of course, it could not really be filmed inside the dam. Taking a scene from the outside and then setting up the venue, the MGM props team once again reproduced a 10-meter-tall Megatron, which is taller and more domineering than Vertigo.
Ka.
Patty Jenkins stood up from behind the surveillance screen. Godot, your emotions are not in place, and your lines are wrong. Gal Godot's tone was a little low. I'm sorry, director, I'll adjust it. Everyone naturally understands the reason why Godot is not in the state. Her own big boss is in trouble, and no one really blames her. 10 minutes off, Godot, you find your form. Patty Jenkins said.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Went back to her chair and sat down, and soon the crew took her mobile phone. Godot, your phone. Thank you. Glancing at the screen, Godot hurriedly stood up and walked into the corner alone. Eric. Hey. Godot, what's wrong with you? Why is your tone so low? It's nothing. It's just that I didn't sleep well. Did you get caught up in the gossip reports? Now that you said, well, yes. Tell me if those messages are true. You and Nicole Kidman. Since it was punctured, Gal Gadot's character simply went straight to the point. Of course it's not true. I can tell you very responsibly, it's all nonsense. Those paparazzi like to make up scandals the most, so that the newspaper will sell well. Don't you understand? After so many years in the entertainment industry, Eric deeply understands a truth. As long as he is not caught and raped in bed, then don't admit it. Don't worry, there will always be brain-dead fans who believe in you. And what's even more terrifying is that some will self-brainwash, which can be called the highest level of brain-dead fans. After the heat is over, it will make a comeback. But why do you want to go to her house alone? Don't tell me it's not you. I know the car. Baby, just working on a new movie. You can look at the ABC report. Those big newspapers are relatively objective.
La vie en rose?
Yes, if you don't believe me, I'll go to the crew in a few days, and I can show you the script. In a few days? Why in a few days? Not now. You haven't been on the set for half a month, and you can't find a director like you in the world. Godot, because I'm waiting for a plane and I'm going abroad soon, there's a big project that I need to coordinate, and it's related to MGM's future development. Listening to what Eric said was so serious, Godot was too embarrassed to say anything more. After all, the two have not confirmed their relationship, and they can only be regarded as hazy love. Why does she ask for each other? There was no movement in the phone, and Eric's voice gently told his thoughts. Godot, I miss you. He was stunned for a moment and replied, I miss you, Eric. I want to see you so much. Bear with me for a few more days, baby, and when I get back, I'll see you at once. Oh well. Hearing that there was no sound on the other side, Eric was about to hang up the phone. Suddenly, Godot's voice rang out again. Eric, can you answer me a question? What? What are we? What are we? What do you think of me? Asked Godot, who seemed to have plucked up a lot of courage. After a moment's hesitation, Eric said solemnly, Girlfriend. If I don't have you in my heart, how can I make a special call to comfort you before I get on the plane? I can't use a mobile phone on a plane, and I'm worried that you have emotions. Is this answer satisfactory? In 2003, all countries around the world were not allowed to use mobile phones on airplanes and had to be turned off because they could affect signal transmission. And this ban did not begin to break in Europe and the United States until 2013. Not satisfied, hee. I'm not satisfied that you're still smiling so happily, Godot. Film well, I'll be back soon. Well, I'll wait for you. Air. Was a woman's laughter on the other end of the phone, and then the phone hung up. Eric nodded secretly. This will definitely not affect the progress of the shooting. At this time, the car arrived at the airport. Eric got out of the car and stretched. There was no more annoying paparazzi, and the air was much fresher. The law only stipulates that there can be one wife, and it does not stipulate that there can only be one girlfriend. Eric thought as he walked, it was not too easy to deal with this kind of fledgling little girl. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, a plane slowly landed at Beijing International Airport. Walking out of the departure hall, Eric looked left and right, and when he returned to the land, the familiar feeling came over him in an instant. Looking at the sparse and hurried people around him, the yellow skin made him feel very kind. A little girl of 4 or 5 years old looked at Eric with wide eyes while holding her mother's hand. Eric smiled at her, and the little girl smiled back, although she couldn't see clearly because she was wearing a mask, but Eric was sure that the little girl must be smiling. On Eric's flight, he was the only foreign face left on the last trip. Why did my father say that it was drudgery to come to Huaxia to preside over the work of the branch? Firstly, because compared with the United States, the current Huaxia is indeed still lagging behind. Coupled with the media exaggeration, many foreigners have misunderstandings, which will be the same until 20 years later, and even have a tendency to become more and more serious with the change of the international situation. Susan also accepted it after her father's hard persuasion, and it is said that her husband and children cried a lot when she left. Even Eric only told his parents about it when he was about to get on the plane, and he and Godot only said that they were going abroad. After taking the mask belt handed over by Chun Xing, the two lined up to prepare for the testing entrance, and several staff members wearing protective clothing were performing their duties. "Boss, it looks like the inspection is very strict. Is it really that serious?" Eric shook his head slightly. "Don't worry, after the test." Chun Xing called Susan, and soon a white Passat appeared in front of him, and the two got into the car. Taking off his mask, Eric asked, "Susan, how are things going at the branch?" Susan helped her glasses. "It's quite smooth. After I came here, I dragged the relationship between Xinghui Company and Han Sanping of Huaying Group to meet. This person gives me the feeling of being more pragmatic and welcomes our proposal to establish a branch, but after all, he is only the vice president of Huaying, and he has no right to decide many things." Then he introduced me to the director of the Beijing Optoelectronics Bureau, and I met with that director Zhou a week ago, and his attitude was similar to Han's, and he also welcomed him. Later, I waited for the news, and after asking twice, Director Zhou said that he was asking the leaders for instructions, and the land issue is not a matter that can be solved quickly. Yesterday, I told Director Han and Zhou that you were coming over, and they have already set up a dinner, and should be waiting for us now. Eric nodded. As a Chinese in his previous life, he certainly knew that the administrative process would take time. Sure enough, as soon as Susan finished speaking, the phone called. It was Han Sanping, asking if Eric had arrived. The Passat was running on the road, and the Yenjing lights were still shining during the special period. It's just that there are fewer pedestrians on the road, but it's not nothing. Pedestrians are wearing masks. Now Yenjing's policy is not only to resist Africa, but also to continue life as usual, so the implementation is a fixed-point closure and control, and everything is as usual in non-special places where there is no problem. The car finally came to the Fortress Garden Hotel, which is still open as usual. Since there are often official reception tasks, it will also receive foreign guests, which is an official fixed point. After some testing again, Eric was led by the waiter to a private room. The moment he opened the door, Eric saw 4 people sitting inside, 3 men and 1 woman, 2 of whom he knew so well that he could recognize them at a glance. One is naturally Han Sanping, vice president of Huaying, although he has not yet corrected it, but the Huaying Group in 2003 is actually his world. He holds the real power of Huaying, which is recognized in the circle, and what he lacks is a name. Now the presiding officer, who will soon become the abbot. The other is Zhang Zi, who shook his head secretly when he saw him, probably being pulled to accompany him. But today's dinner is to talk about some serious things, and it is superfluous to bring a female star over. Han Sanping stretched out his hand with a smile. "Welcome, Mr. Eric. I've been looking forward to you coming over for a long time." Next to her, Zhang Zi immediately translated in English, and as soon as she spoke, Eric understood the meaning of her presence here. Directly interrupted Zhang Zi's translation, and then in the other party's stunned eyes, Eric said, "I don't need a translator. I can speak Mandarin." Then he bypassed Zhang Zi and directly shook hands with Han Sanping, Director Zhou, and a deputy director of the Optoelectronics Bureau. Shake hands. Han Dong, Zhou Ju, Qin Ju, it's a pleasure to meet you. Eric Cooper, just call me Eric. Huaxia, Yenjing, Fangza Garden. Deputy Director Chen of the Yenjing Optoelectronics Bureau opened a bottle of red wine, and if it was his own person, of course he would drink it in white. But considering that Eric is a foreigner, People must not be used to drinking liquor. Plus there are lesbians, and red wine is also very good. Seeing that the wine was opened, Chun Xing remembered the precautions told by the elders in the family before coming, and Chun Xing immediately wanted to take it. Seeing this, Eric patted him lightly on the leg and motioned not to move. Zhang Zi, who was sitting by the door with Susan, hurriedly stood up and took the wine bottle. Her English was very good, and she was originally called to be a translator. Because on the mainland, there are not many well-known female stars in the world, and she is the only one who happens to be in Yenjing at this point in time. Now that translation is no longer needed, it is natural to show its value in other aspects. The three people present were the highest level of Director Zhou, and the level of the main hall directly under the central government was the level of Qi Tongwei in the name of the people. Han Sanping and Deputy Bureau Chun are at the same level, both at the level of Deputy Department. However, because Han Sanping is in charge of Huaying and is the current big brother in the entertainment industry, Zhang Zi has to pour it for him first when he drags the bottom of the bottle. Seeing this, the latter's eyes narrowed slightly, and he pointed at Eric. It's a guest from afar. Pour it for little Mr. Cooper first. When the intention arrived, William Z obediently walked to Eric's side, bent down and poured half a glass of red wine with a smile. The heating in the room was very sufficient. William Z didn't know if it was specially worn. She couldn't see it when she was sitting, and she bent down and immediately revealed her career line. It's a pity that the two headlights are not prominent, which is quite average for Eric, who is used to seeing European and American circles. Mr. Cooper, I'm William Z, and I've admired you for a long time, but if it weren't for the war, we should have met at the Oscars. Eric looked at her. What does this mean? Didn't William Emo's Hero be shortlisted for the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film? Originally, Director William and a few of us leading actors went to Los Angeles together. But a few days before the departure, the war broke out suddenly, so considering all aspects, several of our leading actors did not go, and we were replaced by two producers. If I had gone at that time, maybe I would have met before. Huaxia CCTV broadcasts the whole process of the Oscars live this year, and I can see the moment when you heroically saved the beauty. Mr. Cooper, you're like a knight, a handsome knight. After William Z finished speaking, everyone laughed together. After pouring the wine, Zhou Xiaoping raised his goblet and said, "Then let's use the first glass of wine to wash the dust for the knights who came from afar." After taking the first sip, Han Sanping pointed to the exquisite dishes and said, "Mr. Cooper, although you speak Mandarin very well, to be precise, it is the best among the foreigners I have ever seen, but I have definitely never eaten authentic Chinese cuisine." Eric picked up a piece of sea cucumber and put it in his mouth, savored it, and all the memories came flooding back. He said with some sighs, "Handong, Zhouju, in fact, in the MGM in-house restaurant, I specially hired a chef from Chinatown to cook, but the scallion roasted sea cucumber he made is still a little worse than this." Han Sanping laughed and said, "That's for sure. Fengzi Garden used to be the place where the state banquet was held to entertain foreign guests, not to mention anything else that Kissinger of your United States has eaten here." As he spoke, he raised his glass. "So I propose to celebrate that we have eaten at the same table with Kissinger, and then take a second bite." After saying that, Han Sanping took the lead in taking half a cup, and Zhou Xiaoping couldn't help complaining. "I said, Old Han, what are you doing with so much drinking? Mr. Cooper is an American, and this is not popular over there." Looking at the two white faces opposite, Han Sanping patted his head. "Oh, I'm not excited. I forgot about this stubble. Then you are free. Just let me accompany you." Eric took his glass and drank half of it, which immediately attracted the applause of the crowd. In fact, he can drink this wine or not, and no one will blame him if he doesn't drink it. Cultural differences are the best excuses, but drinking it can always bring the relationship closer and facilitate future work. Actually, what Zhou just said is not all right. The United States also has to drink when talking about things. We will also talk while eating, and our drinking parties and pies are only a lot more than in Huaxia. But over there, everyone drinks just a concoction. You can drink as much as you want. It doesn't matter if you can't drink. Others won't force you. But since I've come to Huaxia today, I know that there is a saying called following the local customs, so I'll take the lead in the third cup. After saying that, Eric drank the remaining half, and the red liquid in the goblet was instantly left with only the bottom. Everyone also took a third sip. The difference was that Susan took a small sip, while Xing was worried that the boss would get drunk, and he also considered that there would be something wrong in case of something, so he drank the juice. The others naturally followed, and William Z immediately stood up again and poured wine. When she got to herself, the bottle was almost empty after 2 rounds, but you can't pour half of it, so hurry up and open another bottle to add it to yourself. At this level of dinner, the role of female stars is probably the same. It looks like a waiter, but even so, many people can't ask for it. If you can sleep with the big guy after eating, it is even more of a desirable thing. Sleeping may not have good resources, but if you don't sleep, you definitely don't have good resources. This rule is common in the world. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 flavors of food, everyone's relationship has become a lot closer, and they have gradually opened up the conversation box and started to talk about business. Han Samping said, "Eric, a few days ago, Ms. Susan told me that MGM is going to establish a branch in Huaxia, and I think it's very good. Although Hollywood has other companies with offices in China, but they don't play a big role, and I'll tell you the truth. The role of those offices is to lobby for the green light, and the 20 imported films a year are quoted, and there are always people who can eat and people who can't. So far, MGM has only proposed to build a branch, and if this can be done, it will definitely create a historical precedent." Eric nodded approvingly. "I believe that the reason why I have the idea of setting up a branch is actually because I am optimistic about the Chinese film market. Although the scale is not large now, I believe that it will definitely take off in the most 10 years. After all, there is a huge market of 1.4 billion people here, and MGM wants to be one step ahead of others and eat this cake early." Zhou Xiaopeng leaned back. "The cake must be getting bigger and bigger. Now that China's economy is developing at a rapid pace, everyone has money in their pockets, so they will naturally pursue enjoyment, and movies are a kind of spiritual enjoyment." Zhou is right. In recent years, under the leadership of Han Dong, the Chinese film market has become more and more dynamic. If MGM can participate and drive other Hollywood companies to enter the game together, I don't think it will take 10 years, 5 years to make the cake bigger. Zhang Zi said with a smile. Xiao Zhang is right. If MGM can attract other big Hollywood companies, I am confident that the Chinese film market will break through 10 billion in 5 years. Han Sanping pointed out the country in high spirits. But then he changed the conversation. "But there are some things that need to be made clear in advance, and I have also talked to Ms. Susan about these. That is, to set up a joint venture company, and Huaying Group must account for at least 51% of the shares." As if worried that Eric would not understand, he continued to explain, "Of course, this is not my personal request, nor is it that I want to be embarrassed by MGM. We have the law here that stipulates that foreign capital cannot invest in cultural undertakings alone and must be joint ventures." Of course, Han Sanping's policy Eric is clear, and he has no objection to this, and he will abide by the rules of whoever he visits. Thinking about the beginning, DreamWorks set up an Oriental DreamWorks company in the Magic Capital, which is actually a joint venture, and DreamWorks shares are 45%. And if you can get 49%, it is the limit. The most obvious benefit of the joint venture is the film share. The co-production film is not considered to be introduced, and you can enjoy the same treatment as domestic films, and to hell with the 13% share. Han Dong, you said that Susan has reported to me. I understand very well. Everything is done according to the rules. My only hope now is that the project will land quickly, so I flew over to meet with you, and you just thought I was here to urge the progress." Han Sanping laughed. "I'm here to say, as long as MGM's money arrives, as soon as we sign the contract, I won't do anything from tomorrow. I will go to run the procedures for you, at most a week, to ensure that all the procedures are in place." "So fast," said Eric, a little incredulous. "It's not too fast. Since Stephen Chow and I spoke on the phone, I have been making preparations, and when I met with Ms. Susan, I officially reported this matter to the leader, and the leader was also very interested. Find a time in the next few days. You and the leader have a formal meeting, as long as the decision is set. A week is enough to complete the process. There are also existing office locations, and a new building was built in the Science and Technology Port last year, which is still idle and can be used completely." Listening to what Han Sanping said lightly, Zhou Xiaopeng couldn't help but take out a cigarette and light it. "Lao Han, you're a cultural company. Of course the procedures are easy to go, but I will be in trouble here. If MGM wants to take the land to build a factory, let alone a week, it may not be possible to do it in a month. There are a lot of departments involved, and there are still various procedures to go through, especially now that it is a special period. Even if you get the land, you can't do the construction." Eric frowned. He couldn't tell anyone. He would let go in 2 months. No one dared to make such an assertion now. "Director Zhou, is there a way to make the process faster? Not to say that the process will start after the process, but at least the process must be completed first, and when the special period is over, MGM can start work immediately. Don't delay time." Han Sanping also said, "Eric is right. The preliminary procedures must be completed at least first. This is a real foreign investment that is giving you credit, Lao Zhou. If this factory falls, MGM will invest tens of millions of dollars, not to mention this year's investment promotion task. It will be given to you next year, so you can burn high incense." Zhou Xiaopeng glared at him. "It seems that the benefits all fall on my head. You have made a joint venture company here. Isn't it also a great achievement? Maybe it will be corrected for you this year. You can steal the fun." Han Sanping hurriedly waved his hand. "Don't talk nonsense. The organization has its own decisions. Can you still replace the standing committee? As soon as you drink too much, it is easy to miss the door, and Eric doesn't want to listen to them about sensitive content, so he hurriedly stops." "Dong Han, Director Zhou, MGM came with sincerity this time, and cooperation is a win-win situation, which is good for everyone, and I can't stay in Huaxia for too long. I still hope that I can finalize things at one time." "That's right. Mr. Cooper is here to contribute. Lao Zhou, you can't drop the chain at that time. I directly introduced Ms. Susan to you. I didn't show a word on the third side of the Cultural Affairs Bureau. Enough brothers. If you drop the chain, I won't have a light on my face." Zhou Xiaopeng pushed Han Sanping's head away. Okay, I remember your goodness. Xiaozhong, you go and ask the waiter to add another signature dragon carp. Yuhan Dong loves to eat." Zhangzi was really called as a waiter, so she naturally couldn't say half a word, and obediently went out to urge the food. As soon as she went out, Zhou Xiaopeng raised his eyes and looked at Eric and said directly, "Little Mr. Cooper, let's talk behind closed doors. I have a proposal. You might as well listen to it. Please. Now is a special period, and it is difficult to carry out any work, but there is only one, that is, to resist Africa, and now the attention of the big leaders is in this regard. Let me say something that you Americans don't understand. This is called bottom line work. You can't wear the bottom line if you wear it, and if you wear it, something will happen. As soon as this bottom line is worn, no matter how beautiful other work is, it is equivalent to adding a zero in front of the performance, even if it is 10 billion or 100 billion behind you. As long as the zero in front is added, it is all in vain." Eric didn't speak, pretending to be trying to understand, but how could he not understand in his heart? "So, if I want to get things done as soon as possible, I have a proposal, of course. It's just a proposal, and it doesn't mean anything else, that is, whether MGM can do charity. Hearing the word charity, Eric understood in seconds. Director Zhou, you mean to donate money to contribute to the fight against Africa. Can you understand it in this way? Zhou Xiaopeng nodded. It's comfortable to talk to smart people, and in this special period, this practice can instantly make MGM famous across the country. In the eyes of the leader, it is convenient to do anything, and the name of the caring enterprise is hanged, which is also very beneficial to the future development of the enterprise. For example, if you build a factory, you always have to produce, and you always have to deal with many departments in the future. The reputation is there, and the foreign-funded enterprises that help resist Africa, which department dares not to give you the green light? Eric nodded secretly. Zhou Xiaopeng's proposal is indeed good, and it is very beneficial to the company's subsequent development. In his previous life, he worked in the crew for so many years, and he also ran through many departments, and it is common to see people's faces. You are a director and a producer in the crew, and you are awesome in the crew. And for this land, their feelings are not weaker than theirs, and it is good to donate some money, which is a heart and mutual benefit. I think Director Zhou's proposal is feasible, but in fact, doing charity in the United States is also a very common way. In this case, you add this when you go to report to the leader, and then try to arrange a meeting with us within a week. Seeing Eric's promise, Zhou Xiaopeng was secretly happy in his heart, which was all his further credit. No problem, I just don't know how much MGM plans to donate. Eric holds out a hand. $5 million. Box room was pushed open, and Zhang Zi's eyes widened, looking at the young man in front of him who was younger than himself in surprise. She had just heard the figure of $5 million, and it was still in dollars. The number came out of Eric Cooper's mouth as if it were weightless, no different from 500 pieces. On the other hand, the salary of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was 130,000 yuan, and later, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon became popular, and when he took over the filming of Hero, the salary had risen to 1.6 million yuan. But 1.6 million yuan is already the pinnacle of what I can get at present, because Hero is a commercial blockbuster with high investment, and I can't give the salary at all if I change it to an ordinary domestic movie. Can look at the young owner of MGM in front of him. The opening is $5 million, and the converted exchange rate is more than 40 million yuan, which is equivalent to her filming 30 heroes. But this money is just a drop in the bucket for others. At this moment, the feeling of a huge gap that had disappeared for a long time rushed to her heart again, and the last time she had this feeling was when she saw Gong Li. But since Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon has opened her up to a certain level of international popularity, that sense of disparity has disappeared, and now it has suddenly popped up again. Hollywood, only Hollywood can make me truly realize my value, and this is the best opportunity. With this thought lingering in her heart, William Z's eyes became more and more enthusiastic when she looked at Eric. And it was not only she who was shocked at the scene. Han Sanping, Zhou Xiaopeng, and Deputy Director also widened their eyes. There are some things that Eric doesn't know, but Zhou Xiaopeng, as a person in the system, understands how big this number is, so big that it has exceeded many state aid. So far, the world's donations to China have only been more than 20 million US dollars. For example, the United Kingdom provided $5 million in aid, Italy $1 million, Australia provided $1.7 million worth of supplies through the World Health Organization, Canada provided $3.14 million in supplies and research costs, and South Korea provided $300,000 in free aid. Abroad, although the enthusiasm is higher, but so far, the largest donation of China Petroleum Group is only 20 million yuan. The main reason is that the economy has not really taken off in 2003, such as Beijing, the country's leading big city. Last year's average annual salary of workers was only about 24,000 yuan. So, seeing Eric casually waving his hand is $5 million. It would be abnormal if they didn't react. Zhou Xiaopeng swallowed his saliva. Eric, I'm afraid $5 million is not suitable. Why? I think 5 million is a lot. Eric was a little unhappy in his heart. If this was too little, he would be insatiable. He wanted to make some contributions, but he didn't want to be a big injustice. Zhou Xiaopeng hurriedly waved his hand. No, no, you misunderstood. It's not too little, but too much. What? I've seen someone who thinks he has less money, and it's the first time I've seen a lot of money. Eric, there are some things that you don't know, and it's not convenient for me to say them clearly, but I can draw a line for you, and $2 million is about the same. In officialdom, Zhou Xiaopeng is thinking not only about economic issues, but also about face. If a foreign-funded enterprise is really asked to donate more than 40 million yuan, while the highest donation in China is 20 million yuan, who will be slapped in the face? Many people will be disgraced. Didn't know what Zhou Xiaopeng was thinking. Eric could only smile helplessly. Okay, since Director Zhou said it, it's $2 million US. Okay, then Lao Han and I will do our best to complete the preliminary procedures for Ling within a week, and before you go back to the United States, let's try to hold a press conference, and this matter will be done. After getting down to business, all that was left was to chat and fart. Zhou Xiaopeng became a listener. Han Sanping and Eric began to talk about the development of the movie. William Z wanted to interject, but obviously no one took her seriously. After saying a few words, she was too embarrassed to interject all the time, so she could only chat with Susan to get closer to each other, while secretly observing Eric. The two clinked glasses. Han Sanping drank the rest of the wine in one gulp, and now his cup has been replaced with white wine. According to his words, the red is boring and it tastes wrong. Eric was still a red wine, and he didn't drink it dry, but only took a small sip. The first 3 cups are counted as following the local customs, and the rest will be according to their own customs. William Z hurriedly filled Han Sanping again, and the latter was obviously a little upset at this time. Little Mr. Cooper, if we can make this joint venture, look at my crow's mouth, it will definitely be done. When the time comes, I have a hope in my heart. That is, I hope MGM can help Huaxia practice a group of talents, especially technical talents, and the gap between Huaxia and Hollywood in this regard is really too big. I'm not afraid of your jokes, I'll be honest. Judging from the current level of special effects on the mainland, even Terminator 2 can't be compared. It was a 1991 movie, 12 years ago. And the future will inevitably be the era of special effects blockbusters. If you can't break through the technical barriers, if Chinese movies want to break out of the country, I can only say that it's too difficult. Eric couldn't help but sigh at the accuracy of Han Sanping's gaze. According to memory, the next 10 years will indeed be the world of special effects blockbusters. Hollywood will bombard the world market indiscriminately, and there is no rival in all countries in the world. But the reason why Chinese movies can't go abroad, although technology is a factor, everyone knows what the root cause is, and there is no need to talk about it. There are also things like the movie classification system, the reason why it has been delayed for a long time. What is the reason why everyone knows what is in their hearts? Chat and fart, brag, just talk about the road. Even if it is a small circle of a few people, you must be careful that the wall has ears, and there are not a few people who overturn. Han Dong, what you said makes sense, but in my opinion, the story is actually more important than the technology, because a good script is the cornerstone of a good movie. I can help Huaxia practice technical talents, and I can match China Film and Weta Digital, but I hope that Huaxia can pay more attention to screenwriting. As far as I know, the status of screenwriters in the Huaxia film market is really difficult to describe. If you really want to make movies go global, it's much more important to focus on screenwriters than special effects. Otherwise, think about it. When special effects haven't yet emerged, why are there so many American dramas that can be sold all over the world? After chatting for a while, Han Sanping, who was originally in high spirits, became more and more depressed and finally simply drank another glass of liquor. At 10 o'clock in the evening, when the dinner ended, Deputy Director took Zhou Xiaopeng, who had drunk a lot, away, and William Z drove Han Sanping, who was already dazed, to leave. The three of Eric stayed in Fortress Garden, which is not only a hotel, but also a hotel, and the environment is very good. All right, you guys should rest early, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. He sent Xing and Susan away. Eric took a good shower and went to get rid of the smell of tobacco and alcohol on his body. For a non-smoker, smelling other people's secondhand smoke is simply torture, but you can't stop letting others smoke if you don't smoke at dinner. Oh no, I left in too much hurry and forgot to bring clothes. I have to ask Xing to buy a few clothes tomorrow. Shaking his head, Eric lay on the bed and turned on the TV, and the first channel he saw was CCTV 8, which was playing the preview of the next episode of The Family of Gold Powder. On the screen, looking at the young Kuan, Dong, who has not yet gotten along with Wang Daji, and the young Crystal Liu, Eric can't help but sigh and laugh at the same time. Recalled that in the past, he and Kuan also partnered in filming, that is, Tianxing Long Song. At that time, he was not even an assistant director, just an assistant director. At that time, it was the era when capital invaded the entertainment industry the most fiercely and traffic was king, and the crew had actually changed from a director-centered system to an actor-centered system. Except for those top directors, everyone is being kidnapped by capital, and he naturally plays the role of being called around. But now it's all different. As long as you hook your fingers, I don't know how many bosses of film and television companies will come to kneel and lick. As for those actors, they don't even have the qualifications to kneel and lick. In today's era, Hollywood is a place that stars all over the world yearn for, and it is also a crushing game for China. Heart-wrenching, but it's the truth. Bell. Just as Eric was about to fall asleep, the phone suddenly rang out. Seeing that it was an unfamiliar number, and it was Huaxia's phone, Eric hung up directly. The unfamiliar number at night was either a traitor or a thief. As soon as I hung up, the phone rang again, and it was still this number. Eric hung up a second time, but the phone rang a third time. What's the matter? After a moment's hesitation, Eric chose to connect, and a familiar voice immediately came from the other side of the phone. Mr. Cooper, I'm Zhang Zi. Oh, what's the matter? Hearing that it was her, Eric frowned. This girl is not a simple character. But then again, how can there be a simple role in the entertainment industry? This is originally a chicken nest and a duck nest, and the actors and directors are small animals foraging in it. And people like themselves naturally play the role of breeders. Sprinkle water and rice for the small animals, and the chickens and ducks can be fattened up and eaten or sold for money. That's right, Handong noticed that you didn't seem to bring a change of clothes. Let me send you a few sets. Then you put it at the front desk and let the waiter bring it up. Mr. Cooper, would it be convenient to reveal your room number? I think it's better to send it myself. Why? In fact, there are other things besides clothes, and it is inconvenient for others to send them. After a moment's hesitation, Eric said, Then you come to 301. Okay, please wait a moment. In the lobby on the first floor, William Z's face was full of joy, and then she didn't go directly to the elevator, but came to the bathroom. Take out the vanity case from your bag and carefully dress yourself in the mirror to make yourself look more beautiful. I took out the fragrance spray and sprayed it into my mouth, and after breathing in the palm of my hand, I smelled it, and the smell of wine was a lot lighter, which was very good. After finishing the preparations, the corners of her mouth raised slightly. In the dead of night, drunken and abusive and sexual. When she went abroad to participate in activities, she didn't know how many foreigners showed longing for her, and she believed that with her charm, it would not be a problem to take down a hairy boy like Eric Cooper. Knock, knock. Hearing a knock on the door, Eric walked to the door and opened it, and when he saw the woman in front of him, He couldn't help but wonder that she was wearing makeup, and it was clear what the purpose was. "Thank you, please take a special trip and rest early." Taking the clothes in William Z's hand, Eric was about to close the door, and he didn't plan to get involved with this girl. "The wind review is not good, and I like to stir up the wind and rain too much." But he didn't want to, but William Z couldn't, and the woman squeezed directly sideways into the room. "What are you doing? Is there anything else?" said Eric, with some displeasure. William Z stroked her hair, and a pair of eyes began to discharge affectionately and returned the old lady's clothes. "Eric, there are too many people during the meal. In fact, I have always had questions about the movie I want to ask you, and now no one is bothering. Can we talk?" Eric yawned. "It's too late, and I'm tired from the plane. I'll talk about the movie tomorrow. I can ask Han Dong to organize a seminar, and we can discuss it." William Z was stunned for a moment, thinking to herself, if you really don't understand or pretend not to understand, the actress came to study the movie in the middle of the night. Is it really for the movie? Am I not obvious enough? He's still so young. He just joined MGM last year. He probably hasn't experienced this kind of thing yet. It must be like this. After thinking about it, William Z decided to work harder. She feigned embarrassment and said, "Eric, can you let me use the bathroom? I'm not feeling well because I've drunk too much." Eric just wanted to say, "You just go to the lobby. I can close the door." But William Z had already rushed into the bathroom pretending to be nervous, not giving him a chance to refuse at all, and then heard the sound of running water in the bathroom. "Mr. Cooper, I seem to be in a bit of a difficult situation. Can you help me?" After a while, William Z's voice came from the bathroom. "What? It's inconvenient. What's wrong with you? I'll call room service for you." "No, it's a shame not to let them see what I look like now." This sentence can't help but make people think, why is it embarrassing? Is it because of the posture? "Then I'll help you call the police. The police will definitely protect your privacy. Don't worry, I'll call right away." "Wait, don't call the police. It doesn't seem too difficult. I seem to be fine." Saying that, William Z walked out of the bathroom. The expression on her face was very complicated, and she was even more angry when she looked at Eric's innocent face with a little concern. "No way, it's impossible for him not to understand. Is it because I haven't done enough? This guy is a decent man. No, it's even more impossible." William Z's mind was full of thoughts. In fact, at this point, as long as he was not really confused, he should retreat from the difficulty. But she is still unwilling. Next time she wants to wait for such a good opportunity, and she doesn't know if she will be in the year of the monkey. Thinking of this, she decided to give it a go, and after fighting, she didn't believe that there was a cat. That didn't steal. Mr. Cooper, in fact, in addition to clothes, Han Dong said that there are other things for you. "Oh yes, you just said. What the hell is it?" "Me." After speaking, William Z took off her upper body shirt and then untied her belt in Eric's surprised eyes. Next day, Eric woke up in bed. The waist is not sore, the legs are not painful, refreshing and energetic. Last night, he successfully thwarted Zhang Zi's conspiracy of the coin pool. This girl is really ruthless, more daring to play than those in Hollywood, and it is rare to see her as active and bold in Europe and the United States. At that time, seeing the other party directly undressing and magnifying his moves, he showed his body unabashedly. Eric thought to himself, then don't blame me for being merciless, and he just started the mockery. "Your two lights are too small. Look at the fat on your waist. You can't stop working out just because you wear thick clothes in winter. The legs are even more problematic, thick at the top and short at the bottom, and why are the knees still a little dark? The ass is not right. Why is it flat and flat? Are you sitting too long? You are born to be a human being, you can't be too lazy. And I'm not interested in heavy makeup. Do you know what aesthetic fatigue is?" A series of ridicule finally made Zhang Zi break the defense. A woman who takes the initiative to let her sleep, in addition to being very confident in her appearance and figure, must also have great determination. But if you are rejected, or even ridiculed, then the humiliation you endure is absolutely disastrous, and no matter how thick-skinned you are, you can't resist it. What's more, she is still a female star who lives in an environment of praise and boasting all day long. The information cocoon has been built, and when the fig leaf is torn off, it will inevitably suffer a devastating blow. So Zhang Zi finally couldn't stand it anymore, quickly got dressed, and left in a gloomy manner. As for what Han Dong is not Han Dong, it is purely an excuse. However, although the people drove away, the clothes she brought should still be worn, not to mention that they fit well, which confirms Zhang Zi's vicious eyes, and he can touch his figure when they meet for the first time, which is definitely the level of reading countless people. At the dinner table, under the surprised gaze of the waiter, Eric skillfully used mandarin and chopsticks, drank tofu brain with chili peppers, and ate fried dough sticks xiaolongbao. The latter can still be eaten in the United States, but the tofu brain is difficult, and even the chef he hired is not very good. Now drinking another bowl is indeed a different taste. Wiping his mouth, Eric opened his mouth and said, "Susan, you keep in touch with Zhou Xiaopeng and Han Sanping and urge the progress every day. I've already arranged it for the company, and the money will arrive today, so pay attention." "Okay, boss." Eric looked at Qinxing again. "You can go with Susan to see if there is anything you need help with, or go out for a walk. This is your first time in Huaxia." Qinxing smiled a little shyly. "That's right, although the elders in the family often talk to me about this matter, but for me, those can only be counted as stories. At most search for some pictures on the internet. That's pretty much it." Eric smiled. Qinxing's experience is the same as many second and third generations born in the United States, and Huaxia has a strange mystery for them. It's not enough to just listen to stories. I suggest you go to the museum and have a look, where you can find the memories of your elders. Patting Qinxing on the shoulder, Eric walked out of Fortress Garden, and Susan's Passat was naturally requisitioned by him. "Boss, where are you going? You know I'm the boss?" Uncle Driver grinned. "Although I can't understand the conversation between you and Ms. Susan, I can see that she is very respectful to you. Ms. Susan is my boss. You are her boss. Then you are my boss." Eric laughed. "I plan to take a look at the current Yanjing. Do you have any places to recommend?" "The Forbidden City, then I don't need to talk about it." The driver blurted out. "When foreigners come here, if they don't go to the Great Wall of the Forbidden City, it will be in vain, and if you put it on hold, you have to queue up to go, and it will take an hour. There are no people now, it's not crowded at all. You hire a tour guide after you arrive, which is equivalent to a person wrapping up the Forbidden City, but I don't know if there is a tour guide now. If not, I'll go in with you. We old Yanjing people know a little bit." "Okay, then go to the Forbidden City. I haven't been to the Forbidden City in 2003. "Well, please." The car was not slow, and looking out of the window, Eric noticed that there were significantly more pedestrians on the road during the day. According to Yanjing's population base, even if it is 2/3 less, it can still compare to the flow of people in the non-downtown neighborhoods of Los Angeles. When I came to the parking lot, the driver uncle asked, "Boss, do you want to go by yourself, or will I take it?" "I'll go by myself. I'll call you when I'm almost done. You don't have to wait here, just don't go too far." "Gotcha, you're magnificent." Walking to the ticket office, sure enough, there was no one, and the conductor was a little surprised to see that it was a foreigner, and spoke English directly, not very fluent. Eric didn't interrupt her, and waited until the other party opened the ticket before he said thank you loudly. Then walked into the Forbidden City in the bewildered eyes of the other party. After the Noon Gate, the Taihe Gate, and then went to the Wenhua Palace. Before he knew it, he had come to the front of the Taihe Palace. This can be said to be the essence of the Forbidden City, where the emperor went to court and the dragon chair is high on the steps. It's a pity that in order to protect the cultural relics, a fence is set up outside, and you can't get in. You can only feel it outside. At this moment, he heard a voice not far away, and Eric turned his head to look, only to see two women walking around the corner. Both of them wore masks and decorative glasses, but judging by their figures and walking styles, they should be mother and daughter or elders and juniors. Because the girlfriends of this era still don't stay arm in hand, I think like him, I want to take advantage of the lack of people to come to the Forbidden City to relax. After a glance, Eric didn't care, picked up the DV and continued shooting. Mom and Dad, look here, look at the surroundings. This is the Forbidden City, one of the representatives of ancient architecture in China. It has a history of more than 500 years, twice the length of the history of the United States. The Forbidden City is one of the most beautiful and spectacular architectural complexes in the world, and you can only see this kind of great architecture in China, and Bertolucci's The Last Emperor was shot here. This is the Taihe Palace, the place where the emperor works. The square in front of it can accommodate at least tens of thousands of people, and the White House is nothing in front of it. Look at this again, here it is. Soon, the mother and daughter were not far behind Eric. Hello, can you do us a favor? The mother of the mother and daughter suddenly spoke, speaking very fluent English. There were only the three of them in the entire empty square, and Eric shrugged. What do you need me to do, ma'am? It's easy, take a picture for us. After all, it's just you. No problem. What are you shooting with? Do you have cameras? To give you this, it's more portable. The woman said, taking out a cell phone from her bag and handing it over. Eric took it and looked at it. It was Nokia 7650, which is now a very advanced mobile phone. If you only talk about the camera function, it can be ranked the best among all the current mobile phones. He couldn't help but look at the mother and daughter. A good mobile phone means that the price is also higher, indicating that the mother and daughter in front of him are definitely not working class. Will you use it? I'll teach you. You just need to. The woman found Eric holding his phone and looking left and right, thinking that he didn't know how to operate. It's okay, ma'am. I know how to use it. It's just a phone. You guys get in a pose. Mother and daughter stood side by side, their heads touching each other, in a cute pose. Eric frowned, thinking to himself that you guys were wearing masks and decorative glasses to shoot a ball, and you didn't know it was you without saying your name and giving it to your relatives. After complaining in his heart, Eric handed the phone back after filming, ready to continue to see other attractions. As a result, as soon as he took 2 steps, the voice of an older woman came from behind him again. Sorry, sir. Can you take another one for us? Eric couldn't help but laugh in his heart. It seems that you yourself know how stupid your operation is. Adhering to the gentlemanly demeanor, he doesn't mind helping again while being funny. The older woman took off her face to reveal a beautiful face, looking like she was in her 30s, with big eyes and a good look. Fei, no one now, pick it, it's uncomfortable. Daughter snorted, obediently faded off her disguise, and her face with baby fat obviously hadn't grown yet, but it could also be seen that it was a beautiful embryo. But after all, it was a little worse than her mother. The two stood together again, smiling and posing as Eric. And seeing the faces of the mother and daughter, Eric couldn't help but sigh that Yenjing is so small and this can be encountered. Last night, he had just seen each other on TV, and he understood why people wrap themselves so tightly. The family of gold powder has just made her popular, and now the popularity is high. That's right, the two are none other than Crystal Lu's mother and daughter. Regarding this mother and daughter, Eric is not like those diodes in later generations, either extremely blown or extremely black. As an insider, he has neither a good impression nor a bad feeling. He is just an actor, and he sees far more than fans. To put it bluntly, how can there be a white lotus in this circle that is really out of the mud and unstained, and that kind of person will not enter the entertainment industry at all. As long as you are in the circle, you will more or less do something to challenge morality and law for the sake of profit, and the difference is just the bottom line. Especially this kind of thing, Eric himself has done a lot of it, so it seems untenable to stand on the moral high ground to accuse others. The second time he took a good photo, Eric returned the phone to Lu Xiaoli and played with them by the way. My daughter is very beautiful, and my mother is also beautiful. It seems that being praised by foreigners made Lu Xiaoli very happy, and she suddenly smiled from ear to ear. Of course, my daughter is a big star, and she will go to Hollywood to develop in the future, and then become a world star like Audrey Hepburn. Lu Yifei suddenly pointed at Eric in surprise. You can speak Mandarin. Lu Xiaoli was stunned for a moment, and then she reacted, Yes, you can speak Mandarin. Why do you still use English? Eric laughed. Look at this face. Isn't it wrong for me to use English as an American? After being stunned, the mother and daughter immediately shut up. What he said was so reasonable, it seemed unreasonable for people not to speak English. Ma'am, I don't know if your daughter can be Audrey Hepburn, but I know that Hollywood is definitely not for her. Recalling their previous lives, these two mothers and daughters seem to have an infinite yearning for Hollywood. Of course, stars all over the world yearn for it, and Lu Yifei is originally an American, which is understandable. However, as a girl who is good for nothing but beauty, Hollywood is the most lacking in this one. In terms of appearance, no one is worse than you in female stars such as Charlize Theron and Kristen Stewart, and Miss Watson's before she was not crippled is not weak. In terms of acting skills, Hollywood's overall strength is one line higher than that of China, especially the younger generation of actors, and the contrast is particularly strong. In terms of figure and sexiness, there is no comparison in this regard. Lu Yifei did not take this route. So, what about purity? How many movies have you seen that rely on the innocence of actresses as a selling point? How much? It's very small. Compared with sexy, innocence has no advantage in the film market. And when innocent actresses appear on the big screen, it is often to highlight the anger and sexiness in their bones, such as Lolita. In 2008, after filming The King of Kung Fu, Lu Yifei took advantage of Huai's reputation and decisively chose to leave Huaxia to break into Hollywood. At that time, I signed with William Morris, one of the 3 major Hollywood agencies, and did a marketing campaign, as if to say that I had successfully taken the first step. But that's just an information gap to fool the Chinese people when the internet was not yet developed. As long as the Hollywood agency is an actor, you can apply, submit a photo, and fill out a form, and the simple process is not difficult. This was followed by a 3-year state of unemployed vagrant, who could neither get off nor fight, and there was no place for her in Hollywood. The King of Kung Fu can sell because of Jackie Chan and Jet Li, and it has nothing to do with all the other characters in the play. Finally, in 2010, the mother and daughter had no choice but to return to Huaxia for development. Until the audition for Mulan was successful, I thought that I was finally going to really enter Hollywood, but unfortunately the movie was sparsely filmed, and she was instantly knocked to the dust again. Staying in China, with the escort of your godfather Qin Jinfei, you can have a smooth ride, and who will give you resources when you go abroad? Why am I not suitable for Hollywood? Asked Lu Yifei with some dissatisfaction. That is, why do you say that my daughter can't go to Hollywood, just because you're an American? Lu Xiaoli was also very dissatisfied, and her personality has always been very self-esteemed. Eric continued to laugh. It's okay to go if you want, but there is only one type of Chinese actor lacking in Hollywood. What type? Asked both mother and daughter at the same time. Playing women. If you really want to go to the other side of the ocean to develop, you must seriously study Lucy Liu and Michelle Yeoh. Learn Kung Fu well, and exercise your acting skills. EB 1110. If you learn Kung Fu, you can go to Hollywood and act in a movie? Kung Fu is a stepping stone, and if you don't have it, you don't want to enter the door. Mother and daughter wanted to say something, but Eric had already waved his hand and turned to leave. I still have to visit the Forbidden City. Goodbye. Wait, what's your name? Where are you from? And when I get to Hollywood, I can send you a postcard. Lu Yifei hurriedly asked. She was still very unconvinced, thinking that when she went to Hollywood without relying on Kung Fu, she must slap this guy in the face. Eric didn't answer at all, and slowly disappeared into the community of the Forbidden City. April 1st, 2003. Today is April Fool's Day, and it is also the 4th day that Eric has come to China. In the past 4 days, he has walked through many scenic spots in Beijing, and there is no crowd, and he can shout and shout uncontrollably, which is very refreshing. But early this morning, a little embarrassing news came. On the internet, in newspapers, the news about the suicide of Xiangjiang star Leslie Chung occupied the headlines. Eric then remembered that today was the day Leslie Chung died, and when he learned the news when he was a child, he didn't feel anything. Although I have also watched classic movies such as The True Color of Heroes, East Becomes West, Across the Seas, I only paid attention to whether it was cool or not at that time, and I couldn't remember the names of stars except for Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Stephen Chow, Madonna, and a few others. Madonna remembered it because her dad liked it, so Eric only remembered it after listening to it. When I grew up and learned about Leslie Chung, I knew how sorry it was for such a star to commit suicide. Public opinion, no matter what era it is an invisible weapon that can kill people. Xing didn't react. He didn't know who Leslie Chung was at all, and after taking a look, he continued to feast, and Peter Otto's death estimated that it would make him lose his mind for a few minutes. Eric only ate a little and sighed with some regret. After breakfast, Susan also happened to arrive, and the group of 3 took a car to Beijing City. The inspection of the government unit was very strict, and the 3 of them underwent strict testing before successfully entering the office building. In the hall on the first floor, Han Sanping and Zhou Xiaopeng had already waited there in advance. After the last dinner, especially after MGM started to make money, the 2 of them really started working at full speed, suspended all the non-essential work at hand, and ran back and forth for 4 days in a row, and finally finished the communication work. Eric came here today to meet with the relevant departments of Beijing City and formally discuss cooperation matters. Seeing the 3 of them enter the door, Han Sanping and Zhou Xiaopeng hurriedly walked over, and the latter said, "The secretary is waiting in the conference room upstairs. Come with me." Walking to the elevator, Han Sanping said, "Eric, today's meeting is a 2-in-1. Not only Secretary Leon is here, but Director Wang of our bureau has also arrived, and we had better negotiate the 2 projects at one time." "Your leaders are here too?" Eric asked with a smile, explaining that the more important the other party is, the more likely it is to succeed. "It's not the big leader, it's our deputy director who is in charge of business, and the big leader is not in Beijing, but he also knows about it and supports it." Eric nodded. "It's okay to be able to represent. It's the same with anyone, but when the final decision is made, isn't it okay without the signature of your big leader?" "Don't worry about this. He will be back in a few days. I have already reported it, saying that you will stay in Beijing for a week at most, and you will definitely be able to catch up." After Han Sanping finished speaking, the elevator door just opened, and as soon as the group entered the corridor, they saw several middle-aged men in cadre uniforms waiting there, and there were several people standing behind them, including those with bags and those taking pictures. For the first time, Eric was about to say something to say hello when his hand was grabbed by the leading secretary. "Hello, Mr. Cooper, very welcome." Several other leaders also shook hands one by one, all of whom were important figures who could decide the food, clothing, housing, and transportation of millions of people. Then everyone entered the conference room and took their seats with an ID card in front of each person. Han Sanping, who can call for wind and rain in the entertainment industry, and Zhou Xiaopeng, who can hold the power of life and death in the Beijing media system, can only sit at the very edge of the left and right at this table. Because the two of them are directly attracted by the project, they belong to the concession table, and the identity card in front of the two is not the name of the individual, but the name of the unit. But the most special thing is Susan. The signs in front of others are all in Chinese. Only hers is English. There is no way she does not understand Chinese. This meeting also brought a special translator. Mr. Cooper, the first time we met, if we didn't see it with our own eyes, it was really unbelievable that the vice president of a multi-billion-dollar company was so young. In our Chinese dialect, this is called terrifying. Eric smiled. A lot of things just happened to be around that corner, and then they just did those things, and luckily MGM is doing well now, and although it hasn't regained its former glory, I'm sure it will be in the future. Just like China, ancient China was the world's economic and cultural center and had a significant impact on the world, and I believe that in the future, China will also regain its former glory and become one of the world's most important economic centers and entertainment and cultural centers. It seems that Mr. Cooper knows Huaxia very well. Yes, at least I think so. Otherwise, I wouldn't have convinced my father to set up a branch in Huaxia because I could see the huge potential in this market. Sedan chair was carried by everyone. The camera next to it clicked nonstop, and after a few polite words, the meeting began to get to the point. Director Wang said, "Let me first talk about the establishment of a joint venture company. This matter was reported by Sanping more than half a month ago. The idea is very good, and we agree in principle. I also met with Ms. Susan a few days ago and discussed it in detail, including the first draft of the plan, and we also agreed in principle. There are just some places where we want to be able to get more favorable terms. It's normal to have conditions, and negotiation is a process of counteroffering, as long as it's not too much. Please. First of all, there is a problem of technology, which is the most lacking in the current Chinese film, and I think the cooperation method in the program is still too conservative, and the scale can be appropriately relaxed. I suggest that the number of directors who come to MGM for exchange and study every year be increased from 2 to 5, and at the same time, the number of professionals in management positions, 3D technology, screenwriting, and other aspects will be increased. The other issue is film distribution, and I would like to say that we are not afraid of everyone's jokes, and we have actually been exploring the area of global distribution, hoping to find a suitable path, but unfortunately it has never succeeded. Now Chinese films, if they want to go to the world and expand their cultural influence, they can only rely on foreign companies. But the days of looking at people's faces are not easy after all. So, Mr. Eric, my second thought is that I hope MGM can help Huaxia gradually build up its distribution network, starting with North America. Director Wang's two suggestions are indeed for the sake of the future of Chinese films, and everyone present understands them. And if everything goes according to the trajectory, almost 10 years later, this talent training program has indeed been launched. For example, Gua, Xiqing, Xiao, Baimei and others were all Hollywood students back then, and after they came back, they also handed in their own answer sheets. As for the audience is not satisfied, it depends on personal taste. But the idea is good. It's just too simple. After taking a sip of water, Eric organized the language. Director Wang, there is no problem with your first suggestion. MGM can even help you contact more big Hollywood companies. If you want to learn animation, I can connect you to DreamWorks, and special effects can help you connect with Weta Digital, both of which are top-notch in their respective fields. The number of people is not a problem. After all, you are paying for tuition, and you are not taking it for nothing. Venue burst into chuckles. But when it comes to building a distribution network, I'll be honest, and it's very difficult because there are so many factors involved. Cultural differences in laws in different countries, Very different ways of sharing money at the box office, different ways of distribution, and different quality of films. I want to approach this in a more responsible manner, rather than simply saying yes and then perfunctory to you. In my experience, the most likely outcome of this incident is that Huaxia spent a lot of manpower, material, and financial resources, but in the end, the release of the film can only go around in the Chinese community. So things can be done, and MGM is willing to help you match, but it's best not to have too high expectations, you know what I mean? Eric said this, just first know and then not fight, don't make it in the end, but blame me for not contributing. To his surprise, Director Wong did not show a trace of dissatisfaction, but accepted it very sincerely. Mr. Eric, we have an old saying in China that where there is a will, there is a way. No matter how bad the result is, it is better than not doing anything well. The road is all walked out one by one, don't you say? Since Director Wong has expressed his attitude, Eric doesn't care. Anyway, he is not working in vain. He helped Huaxia expand the market in North America, and Huaxia would naturally give MGM the green light for mutual benefit. Well, these 2 articles will be added to the contract. On the side, Han Sonping's hanging heart suddenly fell to the ground. Although he didn't say a word, his attention was highly concentrated. If the joint venture company is completed, it will be possible to make good achievements by itself, and then find leaders to work hard, and maybe it will be possible to correct it this year. Director Wong's face also instantly showed a smile. Mr. Eric, then I wish us a happy cooperation in advance. Secretary Lee, that's it for me. You can talk about you. Secretary. Leon's face was also full of smiles. A good start is half the battle. Although it was the first time they met, the young man in front of him gave him a capable and pragmatic feeling, unlike some liars who could only brag and talk big things before. When talking, one can blow more than the other, and when it comes time to pay for it, it is either this reason or that reason, pushing and procrastinating. Mr. Cooper, on behalf of the Beijing Municipal Party Committee and Municipal Government, I welcome your investment in the factory. I will not say anything superfluous. Let's look directly at the map. This is a more suitable industrial land around Beijing, a total of 3. You can pick one first. Lights in the conference room were turned off, and in front of everyone, the projector slowly fell, and a planning map of the Beijing area was displayed in front of Eric. The director of the Land Bureau walked to the side, holding a laser pointer in his hand, and the red landed on the plot and began to introduce the situation. After 10 minutes, after listening to the pros and cons analysis, Eric probably made a decision in his heart. Secretary Leon, the main purpose of MGM's investment in building a factory this time is to serve various peripheral production in the future. Huaxia's manpower and material resources and other costs are far more preferential than those in the United States, so I have plans to transfer the production line here in the future. Although the first phase of land is not much, only 500 acres, and the investment is only $50 million, it will definitely be expanded with development. I expect the factory to be at least doubled, or even tripled, in 2 years. So reserving land is my focus, and number 3 is good, but you need to bother more in this regard. Secretary. Leon nodded. This is not a problem. Our current policy is to encourage investment. Mr. Cooper only needs to let the funds be in place as soon as possible, and the government will solve all other things for you. Then thank you. The money will definitely arrive soon. Susan has registered the company in the next few days, and the upfront funds of MGM will come in as soon as the account is opened. But I definitely can't stay in Beijing for a long time. After I leave, Susan will be fully responsible for the business here, and I will ask the Municipal Party Committee and municipal government to take care of it at that time. No problem. Which department needs to cooperate with which department will do its best to cooperate, which leader who needs to coordinate which leader will definitely come forward, and the preferential policies that should be enjoyed are indispensable. If you can't solve the difficulties, let Miss Susan call me directly. Ha 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 ha. With your words, I am relieved. He talked about a lot of details, and they talked for more than 2 hours, and the matters that need to be paid attention to were basically agreed. Secretary Leon opened his mouth and said, "Since the matter is basically finalized, let's improve the contract in the next few days, sign it before Mr. Cooper leaves, and then hold a joint press conference. What do you think?" "I have no opinion. Listen to Secretary Leon's arrangement." Secretary Leon suddenly laughed. "Mr. Cooper, when we first met, I said that you were terrible, but that is our Chinese tradition, and we praise the polite words of the guests. But through this exchange, I must say this sentence again sincerely, I can't see the youth of a young man in his 20s from you. When I was your age, I was still the village secretary. Not to mention the investment of 50 million US dollars. Even if I want to approve a note of 5,000 yuan, I also have to think about it for 10 days and half a month, for fear of making a mistake and making a sudden mistake in my heart. It's still young people who have the courage to think and dare to do." Director Wang looked at the time. "Okay, Secretary Leon, I'll talk about it at the dinner table in a while. We can recruit MGM this time, and we have made a lot of efforts. If it weren't for Samping to keep in touch with people and give you good things as soon as possible, this project might have to fall to Tianjin. Although Yanjing is the center, you don't have an outlet to the sea, and MGM's products are definitely sold all over the world, so you have to drink 3 glasses first." Everyone in the conference room burst into laughter. Director Wang said that Eric naturally understands that MGM will inevitably build more factories in China in the future, and the first one to fall in Yanjing is for political and policy considerations, and then it will be Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and other places. The world's factory, the huge demographic dividend, the exaggerated cost compression, soon, this will become a place that enterprises all over the world flock to.